When train accidents happen, most of them are caused by human error. But however, there could be other factors that can actually help the cause. Examples like the weather, and even fog. Fog can easily cover a yellow signal, which had happened in 2004 involving two CSX trains collided in Zephyrhills, Florida 16 years later today. This is the story of the 2004 Zephyrhills, Florida train collision 16 years later. On November 29, 2004, CSX Manifest train Q44128 was routed through Tampa, Florida. The train consisted of two engines with CSX SD70M 4695 leading, CSX-840CW 7803 trailing, and 137 freight cars, 99 loaded and 38 empty. The engineer was Gerald M. Whitehead II and conductor W.E. Taylor. Meanwhile, CSX Stone Train K 91628 was routed for Wildwood, Florida. The train consisted of two engines with CSX SD40-2 8101 leading, CSX SD70 MAC 4810 trailing, and 60 cars loaded with stone. The engineer was E. Anderson and conductor C.J. Jones. The two trains are face to face on the same track, but however, there is a way for them to pass safely. According to the instructions for the two trains, the CSX Stone train had to stop in a siding to allow the Manifest train to go by, and then the Stone train could continue on its way once the Manifest train clears. The CSX Stone train was approaching a yellow approach signal, telling the train to slow down, but however, the Stone train never slowed down and continued speeding up. As the CSX Stone train was approaching the end of the siding, the crew saw a red signal, and upcoming was the Manifest train coming in the opposite direction. The engineer of the Stone train puts the train's brakes into emergency, and then him and the conductor bailed out of the engine. The crew of the Manifest train also did the same thing, but however, it was too little and too late. The two CSX trains collided at 2:11 a.m. The force of the collision caused all four locomotives and 15 cars derail. The 14 cars from the Manifest train, while one car from the Stone train. The lead locomotives of both trains suffered damage from the front and the back. The second locomotive of the Stone train suffered damage, including the cab section when one Stone car collided into it by the force of the collision, while the second locomotive of the Manifest train suffered serious damage to its cab and body when the cars began to pile up on it. A couple who were living close to the train tracks heard the crash and went to the crash site and discovered that one of the tanker cars had a big hole and was leaking. The couple went back to the house to call 911, and within minutes, fire trucks and ambulances arrived on the scene. When fire trucks arrived on the scene, they discovered there was a fire, one locomotive and two tanker cars from the Manifest train were leaking. About 23,000 gallons of liquid and diesel fuel were leaking from the locomotive and cars onto the tracks. But luckily, the chemicals were not life-threatening. Sadly, C.J. Jones, the conductor of the Stone train, was killed after being hit by a boxcar after he jumped from the Stone train, while the other three crew members suffered injuries. The damage estimated was ordered to be $3 million. But what could cause a collision like this, and why? The National Transportation Safety Board, the Federal Road Administration, and CSX were doing their own investigations. They concluded that the problem caused by the collision was human error, after the crew of KA 91628 failed to notice a yellow approach signal. However, there was also another factor that led to the collision. Around the early mornings, it was so foggy. Maybe the fog helped to cover the yellow signal so crews could not see it well. After all, there's more likely a possibility, which more likely must have led to the collision. In the end, CSX 7803 was damaged beyond repair and scrap. CSX 8101 was repaired, but it was later retired from the railroad. Its whereabouts are unknown, but it was assumed that the locomotive was scrap. CSX 4695 and 4810 were also repaired and returned to service, but in 2018, CSX 4695 was sold to the PRLX. The two locomotives continue in service as of today. 16 years have passed since the collision, but however, it wasn't the last collision. Stay tuned for the 1992 CSX collision.